All right, guys, welcome in. Chase McNutt joining you on KNED, and it's time for another interview. And today, joining me is Jim Bob Miller, one of the candidates running for Oklahoma District Attorney for District 18. And Jim, Election Day, it's right around the corner. I mean, it's about a week away, 8 days. And early voting is coming up this weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Just to start things off, what has campaigning looked like for you lately and the rest of the week as we get closer to Election Day?
Well, lately it's just more, I guess aggressive is probably not the right word, but more intense. But for the last 8 months, we've been going around talking to as many people as we can in District 18, knocking on doors. You know, we were out last weekend in the rain and, just having a good time. So, but what we've really been impressed with is the reaction to our campaign, whether it's me personally or one of my campaign workers that's knocking on doors. And, it's been kind of an overwhelming response. And I really feel really good about it. My only concern, and this is not directly to my campaign, but my only concern is that we get a lot of people to go vote. I mean, the election numbers or the voter numbers for the last 3, 4, 6 years has been abysmal. And I've been trying to encourage people just to get out and go vote. Go vote, do your research, look into the background of your candidates or state questions and things like that. But that's the biggest thing is getting people to just go vote. Yeah,
that's been a big thing, and it's not just a Pittsburgh County problem, although it is still a Pittsburgh County problem. I mean, we have such a small subset of people that are deciding basically the fate of everybody for an entire town and city. And what would you say to help emphasize to everybody that, hey, it's very important that you get out and vote, regardless of who it's for?
Well, we right now we've got some serious things on the ballot, and the minimum wage law, and whether you're for it or against it, that's something that people really need to think about, do their research on, and then go and express their desires about it. The data center thing it's not really on the ballot, but with the county commissioner race, it sort of is. Yeah. And and then we've got a 3-way race for the sheriff's office, and there's the primary June 16th between 2 of the candidates, and then there's an independent candidate running in November. And so those are all things that these people need to be looking at. And then from my standpoint as candidate for district attorney is if people want change, if they really want change, they really need to vote for me, because not only because I've done it before, but because just too many things have gone on, in the last several years. Yeah. That is just, it's the reason I'm running. Yeah. My campaign motto is bringing justice back to, District 18. And that's what we really need. And that's why I'm getting such a positive response from all the people.
Well, to pull on that thread a little bit more, along with that, you said you've wanted to restore faith in office. What is maybe not one thing or maybe just a subset of things that are happening that you would want to change? Maybe not immediately, but one of the first things at the top of your list if you were elected.
Well, the very top of the list is we got to get competent people back in the DA's office, and I'm talking about the attorneys. We've got to get people back in there that know what they're doing and are willing to go do it. Secondly, the lack of prosecution, and I'm not trying to slam anybody in any direction that way, but just it's a simple fact. When I was DA before, we filed somewhere around 700 felony cases a year just in Pittsburgh County. We filed 150 or so in Haskell County. We had 6 trial dockets back in those days, so we were able to move cases through a little faster, but we always tried cases. I mean, 2, 3, 4 felony cases on every single docket. Last year in 2025, my predecessor, the current administration, filed 3, they only tried 3 jury trials in an entire year. That just can't happen. That's what's happening, and that's why crime rates are rising, is because nobody's being held accountable.
Well, and that kind of leads perfectly into my next question here. You mentioned your history. You've done this before. You've served as a district attorney before. Now, looking back, what is maybe something that you did back then that maybe you would either change or improve on, or something else that you would look to bring differently this second time around?
Well, I don't know that I would change anything. I've let it be known that I was not a fan of drug court, for instance, but drug court was enforced on all 77 counties. I think it was 2006. So we set it up in this way, that it was for people who had addiction problems, not people who are violent offenders, not people who are trafficking drugs or selling drugs, making money. I always said that if you're in the money end of the drug business, you're going to prison. It's that simple. And like I said, it's nothing I would change differently. One of the problems is that, we passed a law in 2019 changing most simple possession drug cases to misdemeanors, whereas they used to be a felony. Well, that creates a problem with getting somebody into drug court, because drug court takes, year and a half to 2 years.
Yeah, it's a long process.
And it's expensive and everything. And I will contend that if you're representing someone who's charged with a simple possession, it's a misdemeanor, it's a maximum year in the county jail, you're probably committing malpractice to send them to drug court. If they want to go and it's going to help them, that's great. But if you think about it from the criminal mind perspective, they can plead guilty to a misdemeanor, and they may or may not even go do jail time at all. But if they do, if they're given the maximum sentence of a year, they're only going to do 2 or 3 months out the county jail, and the sheriff's going to kick them out because he can't afford to feed them for $60 a day.
Yeah.
So he'll let them sit there for a couple of months, give them 2 for 1, 3 for 1s, or whatever, and then let them go.
Okay. Well, so that kind of goes into, again, another question that I've got for you here. So we talk about a couple of different issues, and you mentioned, and I think at the debate it was brought up, kind of the backlog of cases that are going on right now. So other than maybe that, would you say maybe are some other challenges facing Pittsburgh County just in that arena?
Well, the backlog is really caused by just not pursuing the criminal case as it should timely. I know that sounds too simplistic, but that's really what it is. Back in my day, in fact, when I first started practicing law in 1989, we had what we called rocket dockets in Pittsburgh County with Judge Layden and Judge Taylor. And if you filed a criminal charge on somebody, you better be ready to go to trial the next day. Now, you're not going that quick. Yeah. But you could, you know what I'm saying? So that's the real problem, and I'm going to point out a particular case. This is not in Pittsburgh County; it's in Haskell County. But there's 2 men up there that were charged with a pretty heinous murder of 2 women in April of 2025, and here we are, June 8th, 2026. They've never had a preliminary hearing. Wow. Not even the first step. So therein lies the problem. Now, I don't know what the cause is. I can speculate all day long, just like you, but that's a problem. And so the thing that's going on that's creating this backlog is just not moving the cases forward as you need them to be. And it's really interesting because they only file about half as many felony cases a year as we did. Part of that's because of McGirt. Part of it is because of the change in the drug laws, but they still it's half the number. So there's no real valid reason to not move them forward. Now, fixing it, there is a problem because you go file 200 old cases all in 1 month. Now you've created a real backlog of are we going to wait 2 years to do a prelim on them, or what do you do with the current cases? And as you know, just this past weekend, we've had a very serious incident happen. So, it just creates a snowball that is real hard to fix. Yes. But as I said, I've done it before, not nearly as bad as it is now, but I've done it before. You simply buckle down and you work 8 or 10 or 12 hours
Yeah.
a day if you need to, and you just get things done.
Yeah.
And that's the way you do it.
Well, and that kind of answered my next question, and maybe not specific changes, but as you mentioned, other than just, I guess, putting your nose to the grindstone and working on it, what is one way that you can kind of address the backlog to just kind of get your foot in the door to start, getting things moving in a more frequent manner?
Well, we go back to exactly what we did before. My first assistant and I, we worked till 8 or 10 o'clock at night, every night. I spent most Saturdays working on things like we have called disposition dockets that you have 40 or 50 misdemeanors that are coming up for a disposition docket. Well, I'd spend all day Saturday making the recommendations and doing all that myself, and then when it came up for court on Tuesday, everything's flowing. The guy's got his plea offer, his defense attorney's had a chance to talk to him, so you just work through those programs. And that's what it's going to take now. It's really going to take people sitting up there and working till late in the evening. You've got to have constant communication with the law enforcement officers. I mean, they turn in a report and they expect to hear something back from you in the next day or two. I know I've talked with some that they've turned in a report 2 years ago and they still don't know what happened with it. So again, it's constant communication. It's with your law enforcement, your victims. You have to keep your victims and your witnesses involved in the day-to-day process. Now, I can't call everybody every day, but it's like if you're the victim of a crime, I call you up and I say, okay, here's the status of the case. If there's anything you need to know, you call me, you come up to the office and you see me, you do whatever. But we keep you informed of the process, and I guess that's what's been lacking. And again, I'm just saying this because of experience myself, but it's that kind of thing that is required, and it will take a little while. I mean, I don't think it'll take me 2 years, but it'll take me a little while. But part of that is because we've got only 4 jury dockets a year. Part of it is because some of these cases are just what we call in the legal profession stale. I mean, it's like, okay, this happened 2 years ago. You got a victim that's moved on with life. They may not want to participate anymore. So there are ways to weed in that 200 backlog case, and actually, I've been told it's actually much more than that. But neither here nor there. You still have to do every case one at a time.
Yeah.
You just got to work through them. So.
Well, so then I think I just want to make sure I can encapsulate this correctly. So basically, what you've talked about, your big message on your campaign is that you have the experience, you've done this before, and you want to obviously help improve where things are at currently. Is that, would you say, the gist of everything?
Yeah, and to pat myself on the back a little bit is the proven success. You go to court and you win 98% of your cases, and usually what I call beat the plea offer. One case in particular I've talked about several times is we had made an offer to a guy to do 5 years in prison. Won't mention the crime, but it was an 85% crime, so he would have had to done a little over 4 years on a 5-year deal. Well, he turned us down. We went to jury trial. The jury gave him 100. He regretted that.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, the following week when we're making plea offers on what we call a preliminary hearing conference docket, we're making plea offers that people are suddenly saying, yep, we'll take it. So it's a combination of not just the experience, as I say, inside the court and outside the court, but you've got to have that success ratio. Yeah. And if you don't have that, it's real hard to get people to take deals. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was a defense attorney for years, and I mean, I've been appointed to represent somebody, and I get the information of what they're charged with on a Thursday, and I'm having a conference the next day. Well, I can't plead that guy out because I don't know if the state's got all this information and stuff. So those would get continued down the road, a couple of weeks or 30 days, something to that effect, but never 6 months or a year and a half or 2 years. So that's where the problem starts, and that's where we start fixing the problems right there. and at the same time, we have to maintain the current cases. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, just like today, they are doing an initial appearance on a very bad situation that happened Friday night. You know, you can't delay that one. You know, it's like we've got to move on this. So you just have to fill in the time. You know, and that's where it's at.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Jim, towards the end here now, as we're approaching 15 minutes, what I normally like to do towards the end of my interviews, as I'm sure you've heard, whoever is on with me, I like to give them the floor to kind of close it out. If there's anything that we've missed that you would like to cover, or just any kind of message you would like to hammer home for anybody listening, as again, we do approach Election Day 8 days from now.
Okay. Well, to sum it all up and finalize it, yeah, the you know, my campaign motto has been bringing justice back to Pittsburgh County. That's what the vast majority of people I've talked with, from law enforcement, private citizens, you know, both counties, Pittsburgh and Haskell County, is that they've just lost faith in the judicial system itself. There's no reason why someone commits a major crime and 2 years later you're getting a subpoena to come to court and testify about it. There's no rhyme or reason for that. So yes, again, my plan is, and my idea is exactly what people have been asking me to do, is bring justice back, get back in the courtroom, get back to processing these things, and have somebody that's successful at it. You know, I mean, I haven't been a, quote, prosecutor for 15 years, but I have been an active practicing lawyer for the last 15 years, which totals 37 now. And I've tried just about every kind of case there is to try, civilly and criminally, whatever, you know, plaintiff, defendant, you know, whatever. And it's that kind of experience. I call it a worldly experience, you know, but it's that kind of experience, but it's also, you have to be successful.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't come hire you if you've lost the last 5 cases you tried, you know. They just stop hiring. So you have to be successful at it. And then lastly, and this is what I think is the driving force for me, is the willingness. You know, it's the, you know, Theodore Roosevelt wrote the Man in the Ring, you know, a poem, a story about that. If you're not willing to step in that ring every day, every hour of every day, you're not in the right spot.
Yeah, what's the point?
Yeah. And like I said, I don't brag about it, but you know, when we had the narcotics task force running back in 07, 08, in that era, you know, I don't think I got more than 2 or 3 hours sleep a night, because our task force was constantly, you know, like 3-4 labs a night. You know, a Mexican cartel trafficking operation we shut down, and you know, so it's constant, and that's the mindset. You know, I'm going to rebuild the multi-jurisdictional task force. I'm definitely going to rebuild my youth prevention programs that I was doing. I started in 02. It was like DARE on steroids, as I used to call it. But we have got to get these kids' attention, and that's, you know, if you ask me off the cuff, off the street, why are you running? I want to protect the kids.
Yeah.
It's all about them, their future, our grandkids' future. And you've got to get their attention. You've got to get them the information to know that, you know, life is not a beer commercial. Life is not, you know, party every weekend. Life is tough, and if you commit crimes and break the law, it's a lot tougher.
Yeah,
you know, so,
for sure.
But I don't want to see any more things like this past weekend happen. I don't know what I can do to stop it, but I know if we get the education to those young people early on, and I'm talking first graders, you know, you start with them, and you do a program to everybody all the way up to their seniors in high school. And I think in 02, I think we hit almost every school in Pittsburgh and Haskell County in, you know, just a matter of a few months.
Yeah, it's a good amount.
And it's just something that needs to be done. And so, you know, my hope is that the people will see that we not only need a successful, experienced lawyer in the DA's office, but somebody who's you know, willing to step into that ring and fight every day for them. And that's what I'm about.
All right. Well, guys, once again, that is Jim Bob Miller, running for Oklahoma District Attorney here for District 18. Jim, I know that you stay busy all the time with campaigning, with election coming up, but I appreciate you so much for coming in to talk a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chase.
Yes, sir.
See you.